In 2023, NASCAR had its first ever street race in Chicago. They continued that tradition for 3 years over the July 4th weekend, and 2025 is the final one. For now, they have talked about potentially coming back. So let's just get straight into the statement about Chicago, and then we can talk about the rest of the impacts on the NASCAR schedule. Thank you for all that you have done to make the NASCAR Chicago Street Race one of the most iconic events in global sports. Following the success of the first 3 years, the Chicago Street Race will hit pause in 2026 to afford us the time necessary to work collaboratively with the city of Chicago to explore a new potential date and to develop a plan that further optimizes operational efficiencies with a goal to return to the streets of Chicago in 2027. Together, we have built and grown an expanded community of fans that consists of longtime NASCAR enthusiasts and first-time race goers from around the globe, and for that, we are immensely grateful. Thank you for your continued support, and we look forward to seeing you at the races. Pretty straightforward. No Chicago Street Race in 2026. They held it 3 consecutive years, 2 of those years impacted by rain, of course, on the Cup Series side of things. This year was the first time we had a dry Cup Series event. Of course, there were also 3 Xfinity events. The 2024 and 2025 races went smoothly. The 2023 race, it rained heavily. They did not even get to halfway. I think they got to lap 20 and couldn't do anything more, and they had to call it there because they didn't have enough time. So each year, Chicago, NASCAR, they have talked about how much of a difference it has made just continuing together, continuing to operate, continuing to get better in terms of building the racetrack, getting the walls in place, getting the pit road in place, getting everything in order, ready for the race weekend, and kind of shrinking that time gap that you actually have to shut a significant part of downtown Chicago in, because it was NASCAR's first ever street race, and I'm pretty sure that was Chicago's first ever street race for a motorsports event. So in terms of both of them learning, getting better at actually operating, knowing where things go, knowing how quickly they can build up and tear down the course, they had gotten much better at that. Obviously, in terms of the racing itself, I thought we saw some great racing in both the Xfinity and Cup Series. The rain, of course, spiced things up in the Cup Series, but even this year with the dry weather, having some alternate strategies, having to put some of the better cars in the midfield, have them slice and dice back up through the field, having, a little bit of the late race chaos, some wrecks and whatever. Sure, I guess that's exciting for some people. But for the most part, I thought the racing at this course was good. You were able to pass into turn 1, you were able to pass into turn 2, turn 4, turn 6, turn 7. There were 5 real passing opportunities, and in the rain, you could pass almost everywhere. So once again, I think it was a great racetrack. If they indeed do come back in 2027, I think it would be exciting still. As I said, great racetrack, great racing. The fans there seem to enjoy it. The street racing concept is such a fun concept. We see it in all other sorts of motorsports, F1, IndyCar, you name it. Almost every other motorsport does it. But the point being, it's a really fun concept, and the fact that we finally got to it for NASCAR, we did it in Chicago, one of the biggest cities in the country. I think it's a really cool concept. And speaking of that concept, the expected replacement, or replacements, because there's a couple different ways that this thing could get replaced, is another street course, which it's heavily reported that San Diego is going to replace the Chicago Street Race. It could be a street race in San Diego, or the island outside of San Diego, Coronado. Or we could just pop out west, and not by west, I don't mean going to the west coast of San Diego. I mean going like an hour west to Chicagoland Speedway. All right, so I looked at a map. Technically, it's southwest. I was a little bit off. I'm not an expert on Illinois geography. Please pardon my poor Illinois geography skills. Anywho, point being, Chicagoland Speedway. We have not been there in NASCAR since 2019, pre-COVID. Oh my goodness. Alex Bowman won the last race there, by the way. But that 1.5-mile track, a very, as they used to call it, a cookie cutter track outside of Chicago, a pretty decent way, but still within the Chicago reach. a track that hasn't been there since 2019. And right now, what is the next gen car great at? The intermediate tracks. Of course, if NASCAR was to go to Chicagoland, which by the way, it didn't matter what package NASCAR toyed with from 2015 to 2019. It seemed like there still was a pretty good race at Chicagoland. The great battle for the win in 2019 between Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson. The iconic finish with Kyle Busch and Kyle Larson in 2018. I think Truex went back-to-back in 16 and 17. 2015, we had that controversy with Jimmy Johnson getting shoved by Kevin Harvick. Like, we've had a lot happen in those last few years at Chicagoland. Once again, it's a mile and a half, similarly shaped to Kansas, kind of. The back straight's got a little bit of a curve to it. But as I said, the next-gen car races great on these intermediates. Vegas, Kansas, Charlotte, Chicagoland, intermediate, mile and a half, just like those three tracks I just named. So yeah, the expectation would be that Chicagoland would race fantastically in the next-gen car. Now, Carson Hocevar, a few weeks ago, he did I don't know if it was a self-guided tour, but he did some sort of tour of the facility. It's a little bit run down. It hasn't been touched in quite a while. They need to, clean it up a bit, get the weed whacker out, get some paint. Just clean the place up before they go back, obviously. But if they end up choosing Chicagoland, I think that's a great addition to the schedule. As I said, with how these next-gen cars race on the intermediates, I think that is a fantastic option. If they go to San Diego, and once again, this is not an either-or. It's not like NASCAR has San Diego on the left side of the table, Chicago on the right side of the table, and they can only pick one. Because Mexico, we don't know if Mexico is going to return. So if Mexico doesn't come back, then you can just pick them both up and use them both. But as I said, the reports right now are saying that San Diego, the street race in San Diego, is very likely to happen. So I would expect that. But Chicagoland is also out there. If NASCAR wants to stay in that Chicago area, Chicagoland is there. You're going to have to do some work. You're going to have to fix the place up a bit. But the expectation will be high in terms of the racing product. So that is fun. But as I said, NASCAR Chicago, the Chicago street race will not return for 2026. There is some hope from the statement that they could be back in 2027. How realistic is that? No idea. I'd rather get to the 2026 schedule first before we start talking about the 2027 schedule. But the Chicago street race is no more for now. But San Diego looks likely. Chicagoland is a possibility. It could come back for the first time since 2019. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Speaking of the NASCAR schedule, the current NASCAR schedule is Dover, I guess, for this year, for this weekend. So thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we will talk about Dover this weekend. Should be fun.